Okay, so this is a review lesson year 12. So we're getting to that point with the attachment topic where we're pretty much concluding it. We'll obviously keep coming back to it with retrieval and when we come across exam questions and things, but there's not really any new learning as such. So we've got a couple of bits and pieces to just review today, building on from the previous lessons in the week. And then really this is just getting you set up to be able to do lots more retrieval practice, revision tasks at home. I've prepared a little bit of a kind of online quiz for you to check your understanding, see where the gaps in your knowledge are. And so this is probably more than an hour's worth of work here. This lesson is just about getting you set up for that, reminding you of some of the documents and some of the resources that you've already got, and just pointing you in the right direction for what you should be doing ongoing to kind of make sure you're really secure in this attachment topic. So for this, you'll need the retrieval grid, which is our retrieval task for today's lesson. And that's on the PowerPoint, which you're about to see, but also which is shared with you on Sims Engagement for Friday's lesson. Your attachment knowledge organizer, which I'll just do a screenshot of it as part of this presentation, but you've got those in your file. Your attachment retrieval questions packs that you've got and you were given before before the school closed. Remember, that's got your retrieval questions in, as well as lots of past exam paper questions. And we're at the point now where all of those, when you're looking at them, they should be familiar. You should be thinking, yes, I can have a go, I could tackle that. And I'll talk a little bit about how best to use those packs again, remind you of that. The link to the online quiz, which I included in this PowerPoint, but is also on Sims Engagement. And that is just literally an online quiz that I'd like you to have a go at. And of course, your notes and your file, having them to hand so that if you do spot a gap in your knowledge, you can look it up or use the online textbook and go from there. So just before we kind of plough on with that retrieval, last lesson when we were looking at institutionalization and we were focusing on Rutter's study in particular, towards the end of that lesson, I tasked you to do a door frame, particularly the yellow highlighted bits there. And I promised you that in the next lesson, we would review that and I'd give you kind of a waggle, a completed version, and you could use that to compare against your own, to add notes, to green pen. So this is it, as promised. I'll just kind of point you in the direction of a couple of things, and then of course you can always print that out for your file. When we're talking about real life applications, I think that's really important. It's a really important element of door frame, because we're saying, actually, this research by Rutter and the Bucharest study and all these other studies that have been done looking at institutionalization and the lasting impact that it has for those children have led to developments and changes in our country as well. It's not just something that's had an impact overseas. So we do now, for example, with children's homes, we reduce the number of different carers that might be working with them. And we had the creation of what's called a key worker role, so that a child who's in a children's home will have one person, ideally, it often doesn't work like that, but one key worker who's their main point of contact, so they're able to at least have some sort of secure attachment or some kind of central figure that they can direct their emotional development towards. So it does have real life implications, and it's made us think carefully about when a child does have to spend time in an institution. And remember, that could be a hospital stay. The importance of the interaction, the regular visits from their primary caregiver, from their extended family, to keep those attachments strong. When we come to methodology, I've used terms like longitudinal study because that's what Rutter's study was. It was longitudinal over a long period of time. Let's see what impact institutionalizations had on those children that were adopted out of the situation and raised by families in England. And longitudinal studies are really useful because it allows us to see something over a long period of time and keep revisiting it. But we also have to be aware that to get these conclusions, to gather this evidence about their attachment, about their emotional development, Rutter had to use methods like the strange situation and like interviews And these have all of those problems associated that we've talked about before. The strange situation lacks ecological validity. Interviews often, the person being interviewed, so the carer being interviewed about that child's attachment type, they could exaggerate, they could lie. It very much depends on what mood they're in that day when they're being interviewed. So these methods, they are not without their problems. I'm not sure how many of you will have kind of put for the ethics about this being socially sensitive. I would imagine most of you did, and that's absolutely right. And this is socially sensitive research. To be honest, most things in the attachment topic are. They're going to hit a nerve with somebody. But another sort of strand that I've tried to focus on there is this idea that actually, if you're going to try and investigate institutionalization and the effect it has, this was the most ethical way of doing it because it was naturally occurring anyway. Rutter was not the one who put these children into institutions, into these awful, poor quality orphanages. That was naturally occurring as a result of the kind of leadership at the time. What Rutter did was just observed and carried out his research, his longitudinal study of something that had naturally occurred so that we could look at the conclusions, we could have, we could make changes as a result of it. So when we're thinking about how ethical it was, well, actually, it was as ethical as it can be in the sense that it was naturally occurring. And that's quite an important point. So we know we've got other evidence. I've referred to the Bucharest Early Intervention Project. I've also referred to Ciugani's PET scan research, and that supports the idea that this institutionalization might have had an impact on structural brain differences and development. And I'll just show you there where I've kind of got that from. Just remind you, these were the notes that were attached to, I think it was Wednesday's lesson, and it references Ciucani here, and it also makes reference to Bowlby and this idea of the internal working model and the maternal deprivation. So there's lots of things that we could draw upon in terms of our other evidence. Okay, I'll leave you to kind of read through the rest and to see what you did include, but also maybe what you've neglected to include, and do highlight or add to your own, so that you can have a really comprehensive set of evaluative points to learn. Because remember, Rutter and these institutionalization studies are identified on the spec. So we have to be really confident because we could get an extended question on this where we have to have the evaluation as well as the outline of what they did and what they found. Okay, so that was really just concluding and finishing up what we were looking at earlier in the week. I just wanted to just flag up, these are your knowledge organisers. You've got them. Hopefully there'll be no need to print out, but if anybody wasn't quite sure, the knowledge organizer is essentially across 3 sheets. So we've got a lot of our key terms here and just little references to some of the key studies. And then we've got a bit more detail about all of the different key studies that we've looked at over the attachment topic, including Bowlby's 44 juvenile thieves on there and Rutter's Romanian orphanage study. So those are our most recent ones. And you can see the detail there. And you've got to try and get to a stage where you could recreate the detail in that without looking, because that will then mean that you are fully prepared on those key studies. Okay, so don't forget you've got your knowledge organisers, and they'll be useful throughout some of the tasks I'm going to suggest that you're working on. Also wanted to remind you that you've got those packs there and you should be using that checklist. We've obviously done it all now. It's not a case of ticking off when we've done it. It's a case of you ticking off each time you've revisited or you've revised it, and we should be aiming for 3 ticks next to each strand there. And a reminder again, and this is in the front of your pack, I would suggest almost a 30-minute cycle. So you take your topic checklist, you pick a subtopic, and it can be any of them now because we've done all of those. You find the relevant knowledge retrieval questions at the beginning of the pack for that particular thing. So, for example, if you were doing animal studies on attachment, find any of the retrieval questions that link to Harlow or Lorenz or animal studies generally. When you're confident you've retrieved your knowledge, when you've addressed any gaps, you've gone back to your knowledge organizer, you've looked up the detail, then you go through the latter part of the pack and you pick out the exam questions that link to that particular topic and you have a go. And if you can, you do it in timed conditions. So set a timer, don't give yourself any more than a minute per mark. If it's a longer question and you think, oh, I can't face writing out the full question, plan it. It still achieves the same thing. We do plenty of practice of writing them out in full. Now it's just a chance of checking, can I structure this question? What would I put in it? What would my evaluation points be? How would I use door frame? So give yourself no more than 10 minutes and just plan it. Chunk the question, plan it out. And that's the cycle, okay? And you can send them to me to be marked, or you can use a mark scheme. And what I'll do is I'll attach the mark scheme onto Sims Engagement for you. I haven't done that yet, but I will. So, and then you RAG rate. How confident are you? Okay, so that's the process, and I would recommend that's something that you're doing regularly. So if we think about this then as our retrieval task, now I've suggested here 5 minutes, but actually if you wanted to spend longer, that would be fine, because if you do this really thoroughly, essentially what you're doing is you're retrieving your knowledge on the entire topic. So we've done these before. You could print this out, or you could just scribble down the headings yourself, and you just annotate around the outside with as much detail as you can remember. So the names of key studies that link to that topic, any keywords, definitions, ideas, concepts, you just go wild and you try and fill your piece of paper. Okay, so what I'm going to carry on with this presentation, but what I suggest you do is you pause the video and you just spend as much time as you can really retrieving all of your knowledge across those topics. And then, of course, what you need to do when you've finished and you think you've exhausted everything is you need to have that knowledge organizer out, have your notes available, and you need to fill in where your gaps are. What did you forget? Did you forget a key person? Did you not remember some of the studies linked to the role of the father? Did you get your type A and type C modelled up? So just have a quick check and see what needs addressing. There's bound to be one or two things for everybody. So I'd like you to spend some time this lesson working on that. I also want to flag up a couple of other things. In your online textbook, and it's page 96, 97, at the end of the attachment topic, there's these little summaries, and I think they're quite helpful. It's only a snapshot. I wouldn't want anybody to just focus on using that, but I just wanted to flag that up there because they are quite nice revision summaries that you can use. Another thing I want you to spend your time doing in this lesson, or, carrying on, because you could do this as many times as you like. It doesn't matter if you have a go and have another go and have another go. I've created for you just essentially a quiz using Microsoft Office Forms. So you all have access to that. The link is on Sims Engagement, but it's also in this PowerPoint. So if you literally just click on the link, it'll look like this when you open it up. And I just want you to have a go. There's, I think, 15 questions, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 15 questions, multiple choice. Remember, you get multiple choice in your exam, and they're not as easy as they might first seem. They're quite tricky, but I'd have a go, and then you'll see, because it marks it at the end for you, you'll see where any gaps in your knowledge are. Okay, so again, that's another revision task I'd like you to have a go at. And then one other thing that I want to flag, this is by no means required. I am not asking you to do any work over Easter. Obviously, I've just prompted you on lots of revision and retrieval tasks you can be doing ongoing, but I'm not suggesting that has to be over the Easter holidays. But here, I actually put this together for year 11 students that might be interested in taking psychology next year to kind of fill the gap that they now have, now that GCSEs have been cancelled. But actually, when I put it together, I thought, well, this would be quite useful to share with year 12 psychologists as well. So you'll see I've attached it to Sims Engagement, and I've called it If You're Bored Over Easter. And this is literally just a few websites, some people or some groups to follow on Twitter, suggestion about how you might use Seneca, some films to watch, some TEDx talks to listen to, quite a useful YouTube channel if you can handle the speed at which the guy talks. But I just thought, actually, yeah, share it with Year 12 and see if they want to do any of that kind of additional reading and thinking over the holiday. So I think what's important to just set the scene is that after Easter, I'll be feeding back on any work that's sent to me and that's been sent already or that continues to be sent through, and picking up on any issues so that we feel really confident that we've concluded the attachment topic. I'll see how you all get on with the quiz and see where the gaps are and address those. But then we'll actually be moving on to a new topic after Easter. And I know that's not ideal when I'm not in front of you to teach, but I'll continue to do these video lessons, or at least audio recordings. And I would just urge you, when we are moving on after Easter, to email me regularly, to ask me questions, to not feel afraid to say I don't get it, because that's particularly important when we're starting new content and new learning. So I'm going to leave it at that. You've got your retrieval grid to have a go at, you've got the quiz to have a go at, and you've got your packs of retrieval questions and exam questions. And there's options of extra reading and things you could do if you're bored over Easter. And then our lessons will resume properly after the Easter holidays. But one thing I would ask you to do, please, Year 12, is to stay safe. I know you're probably bored, stupid, stuck at home, but the advice is there for a reason. Stay at home. Don't be tempted to just pop round to a mate's house, because for everybody's sake, the best thing you can do is stay in your house. And when this is all over, then you can meet up with your mates as much as you like. Okay, take care. Have a lovely Easter holiday.